Marcus Reed balanced his lunch tray with the steady hands of a man who had learned that calm was stronger than anger. Around him, the prison yard buzzed with conversations, clanking weights, and restless footsteps beneath the burning afternoon sun. Most inmates rushed through their meals, keeping their heads low. Marcus walked differently, not proudly, not fearfully, simply peacefully. His quiet confidence made people wonder what he knew that everyone else didn't. Nobody in Blackstone Correctional Facility knew much about the broad-shouldered newcomer. Rumors floated through every corner of the prison. Some claimed he had once worked for the military. Others whispered he had been a bodyguard for celebrities. The official paperwork said only one thing: convicted of financial fraud. 8 years. Marcus never corrected anyone. Across the yard, Victor Kane watched him with growing irritation. Victor ruled the prison through intimidation, collecting favors and crushing anyone who challenged his authority. His followers laughed at every cruel joke and obeyed every order without question. The one thing Victor hated more than defiance was dignity. Marcus possessed plenty of that. "There he is," Victor muttered, shoving another inmate aside. The silent giant. 4 men followed him as he crossed the yard. Marcus reached an empty table and slowly sat down. He bowed his head for a brief moment before taking his first bite. Victor's shadow covered the table. "Mind if we join you?" he asked with a grin that promised trouble. Marcus looked up calmly. "Seats are free." Victor laughed. "I wasn't asking." Without warning, he slammed his boot into the edge of Marcus's lunch tray. Mashed potatoes, vegetables, and bread exploded across the concrete. The metal tray spun through the air before crashing several feet away. The entire yard fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward Marcus. Victor spread his arms dramatically. "Oops," his gang erupted with louder "Arr." "So," Victor sneered, "aren't you going to do something?" Marcus slowly stood. For a moment, even Victor's closest followers stepped backward. Marcus towered over everyone nearby, his shoulders broad enough to block the afternoon sun. Yet his face remained completely relaxed. He looked at the ruined meal. Then he looked at Victor. "You must have needed it more than I did." He turned and walked toward the serving line without another word. Confusion spread through the yard. Victor's smile faded. Nobody ignored him. Nobody. "You think you're better than me," Victor shouted. Marcus kept walking. The laughter stopped. Victor's pride burned hotter than the summer heat. From the guard tower, Officer Daniels watched the encounter carefully. "Interesting," he whispered. Later that afternoon, Marcus cleaned tables inside the cafeteria as part of his assigned duties. A young inmate named Louise approached cautiously. "Why didn't you fight him?" Marcus wiped another table. "My father taught me something." Louise waited. Marcus smiled faintly. "He said the strongest man in the room is usually the one who doesn't need everyone else to know it." Louise frowned. "But Victor won't stop." "Maybe. And if he comes after you again?" Marcus looked through the cafeteria window toward the yard. "Then I'll deal with that moment when it arrives." The answer somehow felt heavier than a threat. That evening, Victor gathered his crew inside the housing block. "I don't like him," Victor growled. "He's just scared," one inmate suggested. Victor shook his head. "No." "Then what's different?" Victor couldn't explain it. He had spent years reading people. Fear smelled a certain way. Marcus didn't smell afraid. The next morning, the tension returned immediately. Word spread that Victor planned to teach Marcus a lesson in front of everyone. Even the correctional officers sensed something brewing. Officer Daniels quietly radioed additional staff toward the recreation yard. Marcus stepped outside carrying another lunch tray. Victor smiled. Perfect timing. He walked directly into Marcus's path. "You forgot something yesterday." Marcus stopped. "What was that?" "You forgot to apologize." Marcus blinked. "For your foot." Several inmates struggled not to laugh. Victor's face darkened. "You've got jokes now. I've got lunch." Victor shoved Marcus backward. The tray rattled. Soup splashed across Marcus's shirt. Still, Marcus didn't react. Victor leaned closer. "What are you hiding?" Marcus met his eyes. "Peace," Victor answered with a hard punch toward Marcus's face. The entire yard gasped, but the punch never landed. Marcus moved only inches. Victor's fist sliced through empty air. So quickly that most people barely noticed, Marcus redirected the attacking arm with effortless precision before gently guiding Victor off balance. Victor stumbled 3 steps and crashed onto one knee without understanding what had happened. The yard became silent again. Marcus never threw a punch. He never even raised his voice. "You slipped," Marcus said quietly. Victor jumped back up, embarrassed. "You think that's funny?" Marcus picked up his fallen bread. "I think everyone deserves another chance." The word somehow humiliated Victor even more. His followers exchanged uncertain glances. Nobody had ever seen Victor lose control like this. High above, Officer Daniels lowered his binoculars. His eyes narrowed. That movement, it looked familiar, extremely familiar. Inside the administration office later that day, Daniels opened an old sports magazine he kept in his locker. He flipped through faded pages until he suddenly froze. A photograph stared back at him. The younger man wore a gold medal around his neck, standing atop an international podium while thousands cheered. The caption beneath the picture made Daniels whisper aloud, "No way." His heartbeat quickened. He grabbed the magazine and sprinted toward the warden's office. Meanwhile, Victor sat alone in his cell, replaying every second of the encounter. Something wasn't right. Nobody escaped his attacks that easily. Nobody redirected his full strength without striking back. Then another inmate quietly approached the cell bars. "I know who that guy is," the inmate whispered. Victor looked up sharply. "What are you talking about?" The inmate swallowed hard. "I've seen him before." "Where?" The man hesitated, glancing nervously down the corridor before speaking 4 words that drained every drop of confidence from Victor's face. Marcus Reed's name echoed through Victor Kane's mind long after the lights dimmed inside the housing block. Sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that effortless movement again. No anger, no panic, just perfect control. The memory unsettled him more than any fist ever could. By sunrise, whispers had spread across Blackstone Correctional Facility. Inmates traded theories while standing in breakfast lines and lifting weights in the recreation yard. "I heard he fought professionally." "No, he trained special forces. My cousin saw him on television years ago." Each version grew larger than the last. Marcus ignored every rumor. He accepted another breakfast tray, thanked the kitchen worker, and sat alone beneath the shade of an old oak tree overlooking the yard. His peaceful routine remained unchanged, but the atmosphere around him had transformed. Men who had laughed at him yesterday now watched him with cautious respect. Inside the administration building, Officer Daniels placed the old magazine on Warden Ellis's desk. "You need to see this." The warden adjusted his glasses. On the cover appeared a younger Marcus standing on a podium with a championship belt across his shoulders. World Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Champion, 3 consecutive years, undefeated in international competition. The warden looked up in disbelief. "You're telling me that's our inmate?" Daniels nodded. "I checked the prison records twice. Same birthday, same fingerprints." The warden leaned back slowly. "So Victor challenged the wrong man?" Daniels shook his head. "That's the strange part." "What do you mean?" "He didn't challenge him. He attacked him. And Marcus still refused to hurt him." The room fell silent. Meanwhile, Victor's pride had become an obsession. Every conversation in the prison reminded him of yesterday's humiliation. His own followers avoided eye contact. Respect, once unquestioned, was slipping away. He slammed his fist against the concrete wall. "I'm ending this today." One of his men stepped forward nervously. "Victor, maybe don't." Victor glared. "You scared of him?" "I'm scared of someone who smiles after getting attacked." Victor ignored the warning. That afternoon, the yard filled for recreation. Guards stood in higher numbers than usual, sensing trouble before it began. Marcus sat on a bench reading a worn paperback novel. Victor approached with 6 inmates behind him. "You've embarrassed me long enough." Marcus slowly closed the book. "I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. You made me look weak." "No." Marcus stood. "Your choices did that." The words landed harder than any punch. Victor's face twisted with rage. He lunged without warning. This time, 2 more inmates attacked from opposite sides. The entire yard erupted into shouting. But what happened next looked almost impossible. Marcus never threw a strike. One attacker grabbed his shoulder. Within a heartbeat, the man found himself gently rolling across the ground before stopping harmlessly on his back. Another charge from behind. Marcus pivoted. The attacker lost his balance and landed face first in the dirt without understanding how. Victor swung wildly. Marcus caught his wrist, turned his body, and lowered him onto the ground with controlled precision before pinning him effortlessly. Everything happened so quickly that even the correctional officers froze for a moment. Marcus released Victor immediately and stepped backward. No bruises, no broken bones, no revenge. Only complete control." The yard stood silent. Officer Daniels exchanged stunned looks with another guard. "I've never seen anything like that." Neither had most of the inmates. For the first time in years, Victor looked afraid. Before anyone could speak, a deafening explosion shattered the afternoon. Boom! The ground trembled beneath everyone's feet. Smoke burst from the prison workshop across the compound. Sirens screamed. Metal beams collapsed as terrified inmates and staff scattered in every direction. "Fire!" Someone shouted. Everyone moved. Chaos swallowed the prison within seconds. A maintenance crew had been repairing a gas line when an unexpected leak ignited, trapping several workers and correctional officers inside the damaged building. The roof groaned loudly. Concrete cracked. Another explosion rocked the walls. Officer Daniels sprinted toward the entrance but stopped abruptly. "The ceiling's coming down." A desperate voice cried from inside. "Help us." Marcus looked toward the smoke. Without hesitation, he ran. Daniels yelled, "Stop!" Marcus didn't. He disappeared into the burning workshop just as another section of the roof collapsed behind him. The entire yard watched in disbelief. Minutes passed like hours. Smoke thickened. Flames climbed higher. Then a figure emerged carrying an unconscious maintenance worker across his shoulders. Marcus laid the man safely on the ground before turning around. "There's still more inside." "No," Daniels shouted. "It's too dangerous." Marcus ignored him again. He vanished back into the collapsing building. One rescue became 2. 2 became 3. Each time he emerged covered in soot, coughing but determined. The prison yard stood completely silent except for the roar of the fire. Even Victor watched without speaking. Then everything changed. A massive steel support snapped. Officer Daniels stared in horror. Marcus. The remaining roof began collapsing directly above him. Gasps echoed across the compound. For one terrifying moment, nobody believed anyone could survive what happened next. The wall of smoke swallowed Marcus completely, and the entire prison held its breath as the burning structure crashed down around him. For several endless seconds, nothing moved except the flames. Dust and smoke rolled across the prison yard, hiding the collapsed workshop beneath a gray cloud. Officer Daniels felt his stomach sink. Around him, inmates stood frozen. Even Victor Kane forgot to breathe. Then a voice echoed from inside, "Clear the entrance." Everyone turned. A steel beam shifted. Another followed. Out of the smoke emerged Marcus Reed, his shirt torn, his arms bleeding, carrying an injured correctional officer while supporting a trapped mechanic with his other shoulder. Behind him stumbled 2 more workers he had guided through the collapsing debris. The yard exploded into cheers. Medical teams rushed forward. Officer Daniels grabbed Marcus before he could fall. "You came back." Marcus managed a tired smile. There were still people inside. The rescued officer opened his eyes weakly. He saved all of us." Paramedics quickly examined Marcus. "You need treatment immediately." Marcus looked toward the injured workers instead. "They first." The medic stared at him. "You're injured. They're worse." The medic nodded silently. Nearby, Victor watched everything in disbelief. Hours earlier he had tried to destroy Marcus in front of everyone. Now the same man had risked his own life to save correctional officers, maintenance workers, and inmates without caring who they were. One of Victor's followers whispered. He could have left them. Victor didn't answer. He couldn't. Inside the prison infirmary, the rescued officer asked Daniels a question. "Who is that man?" Daniels smiled faintly. "Someone who never needed to prove he was strong." That evening, television news crews gathered outside Blackstone Correctional Facility after learning about the explosion. The prison administration released only limited information, but one story spread quickly among first responders. An inmate had entered a collapsing building 4 separate times to rescue strangers. The following morning, Warden Ellis called Marcus into his office. "You've made this prison safer in one day than some people manage in years." Marcus remained quiet. The warden slid the old sports magazine across the desk. "I know who you are." Marcus glanced at the cover. "I used to be." "No." The warden replied gently. "You still are." Marcus looked out the window. "I stopped competing after my wife died." The room fell silent. "I thought winning medals mattered." He paused. "Then I realized the people you save matter far more than the trophies you collect." The warden understood. "So you never told anyone?" There wasn't any reason. Before another word could be spoken, someone knocked urgently on the office door. Officer Daniels entered. "Warden, Victor Kane wants to speak with Marcus." The request surprised everyone. Minutes later, Marcus stepped into the visitation room where Victor stood alone. There were no followers, no audience, no fake confidence. Victor kept his eyes lowered. "I owe you something." Marcus waited. "I'm sorry." The words barely escaped Victor's mouth. "I hated you before I even knew you." Marcus didn't respond immediately. "You kicked my lunch tray." Victor gave a weak laugh. "I know. You tried to fight me. I know. You wanted everyone to fear you." Victor nodded. "I was afraid they'd stop." Marcus stepped closer. "Real respect isn't taken." Victor looked up. "It's earned." The tears filled Victor's eyes. "You still save people who treated you badly." Marcus smiled. "I wasn't choosing who deserved to live." For the first time in years, Victor cried openly. Outside the room, Officer Daniels quietly closed the door, giving both men their privacy. Weeks passed. The damaged workshop was rebuilt. The prison atmosphere slowly changed. Violence dropped dramatically. Several inmates enrolled in education programs inspired by Marcus's quiet example. At the warden's request, Marcus began teaching voluntary self-defense and conflict resolution classes. His first lesson surprised everyone. "The goal of martial arts," he said, "is not learning how to fight." The inmates listened carefully. "It's learning when not to." Even Victor sat in the front row. Months later, Marcus's appeal was reviewed after investigators uncovered evidence proving he had been manipulated by business partners who concealed critical financial records. His extraordinary actions during the prison emergency, combined with the new evidence, convinced the court to reconsider his sentence. The day the prison gates opened, Officer Daniels shook Marcus's hand. "You changed this place." Marcus smiled. "No." He looked back toward the yard where dozens of inmates stood watching quietly. "They changed themselves." Victor stepped forward one last time. "When I get out." Marcus waited. "I want to make my son proud." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then start today." Victor nodded through tears. "I will." As Marcus walked through the gates into the sunlight, nobody saw a former champion leaving prison. They saw a man who had proven that true strength isn't measured by the fights you win, but by the lives you protect, the hatred you refuse to return, and the courage to answer cruelty with character. Sometimes the strongest person in the world isn't the one who can bring another person to the ground. It's the one who can lift others back to their feet. If this story reminded you that kindness is never weakness and that real champions are revealed by their actions when everything is on the line, subscribe to the channel, because the next story may remind you that one act of courage can change countless lives forever.